everybody. Welcome to Wednesday night. It's great to have you here. What a busy time this is. You may have just watched Leland Vittert's show. You're now watching a true crime show. Very different topics, unless you're talking about tonight, because politics is certainly meeting true crime and Jeffrey Epstein. Newsflash, anybody who's watching who's a true crime fan, we've been covering Epstein for a long time. Long time. Suddenly, all the politicsy people are getting in on the game. But today in particular, 6 years after this guy, well, according to police, took his own life while waiting to stand trial for being a pedophile, today, a lot of his victims came to Capitol Hill. And they were pretty specific about their message. While everyone's screaming about release the files, they said, release the client list or we will create our own. Because they know who, was in the room with them. And if they just all get together and write out a list, well, then you have a client list, right? But they're pushing the government. You should do it. You should do the right thing. But folks, when they said, we'll make our own list, now you got my ears going on a true crime show. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're also going to talk about this massive 33,000-page document dump on Epstein. Oh, thanks for nothing. Thanks for nothing, because 97% of it's pretty much already been out the door. It's old news. We've seen it. And look at these redactions. What's that? By the way, who did this? Like, who had to go through 33,000 pages? Dang, what a job. And then there was one other development today that kind of made me annoyed, and I bet it would you too. Remember that whole missing minute, right? They released the video from the jail/prison where Jeffrey Epstein was being housed awaiting trial. This thing, remember this? And all the eagle-eyed don't F with cats people on the internet said, wait a minute, there's a whole minute that's missing. To which the government said, no, nothing to see here. It just stitches like that every single day at midnight. Apparently that's not true. Like, somehow, there actually is a missing minute, and it surfaced today. Does it tell us anything other than somebody lied to us? And I want to know why and what the real story is. All right, that's the Epstein business today. Then on sort of a lighter and not so light note, if you've gone to a wedding before, you've probably left with like a party favor that the bride and groom gives you. It's very sweet. Or maybe a piece of the wedding cake, or maybe you caught the bouquet, but you usually leave with something. You just don't typically leave with the box that collects all the money and the checks and the wedding presents for the bride and groom. But that guy, look at that guy go. That guy took it. He took their whole stash of wedding, like the whole thing. We're going to talk about what this video might yield and what kind of a jackass does this. I feel so bad for that bride and groom. Anyway, then another story that crossed our radar today. Yeah, buddy, I guess you didn't expect you were going to be on the TV, but you are on the TV. Okay, another story that crossed our radar today. We've seen Luigi Mangione in court, right? And a lot of his fans, even though he's a murder defendant, a lot of his fans are oohing and eyeing and have love letters and all the rest, and they seem to like his hair or his eyebrows or his fashion. There's been a lot made about his cable knit sweaters and his no-sock loafers and all the rest. Well, somebody who doesn't know their job very well decided to use Luigi Mangione as a model to sell clothing. Can you believe what you have on your TV right now? Yeah, selling shirts for Shein. How did this happen? Dude's been in lockup since last year, right? But here he is, modeling shirts for Shein. We're going to get into all of that in just a moment because, well, I think that's right in the true crime basket, right? Let's start here, though. Let's start with the fallout from a two-person crime ring. I can't believe it's only two, but it's two. One of them is long dead. The other one is in prison. And if that doesn't peg your mystery meter, stay with me. The crime was sex trafficking, underage girls. And the criminals were the late Jeffrey Epstein there on the left, well, now on the right, and that longtime girlfriend of his and co-abuser, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's very much alive and very much desperate to rejoin society, high society preferably, because that's where she and Jeffrey Epstein ran in the highest of circles, along princes and popes and presidents and other VIPs, the vast majority of whom had no idea what this couple was doing with and doing to a still unknown number of teenage girls. But a few of those high and mighty figures, without question, they did know. And there lies the mystery. Which ones? Which of the high and mighty that are always photographed with this guy? Which ones knew? Maybe they were not photographed, but I don't know. I suspect Prince Andrew had some troubles there. In any case, amid the current tug-of-war between a few members of Congress and the DOJ over the so-called Epstein files, a band of survivors said, hell with this. Forget about it. We're going to go to Capitol Hill ourselves and bring a message and a promise. And here's the message. Release the damn list, the so-called Epstein clients list, clients and collaborators. And if you don't, we will.
Congress must choose. Will you continue to protect predators, or will you finally protect survivors? And also, I would like to announce here today, us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know.
Oh, they went there. Yeah, she said confidentially, right? But you know how confidential things have a way of leaking? I'd be shaking in my boots if you're on that list out there, fella or lady, because, you know, Ghislaine. The women spoke one day after a House panel released those 33,000 pages of Epstein case documents in a big old Google Drive. But almost all of them, like 97% of them, are just old news. They've already been made public, and most of them are really heavily redacted. But in that 3% of never-before-seen material is something that you do need to see. It is the missing minute of surveillance video of Epstein's jail cell the night that he died. It was August 10th, 2019. You know, the same missing minute that the Attorney General insisted just did not exist, just a glitch, just a tape thing. Back in July, we were told that the system reset every 24 hours and that every night's footage had a, quote, missing minute. Apparently not. But is the newly found Epstein minute a smoking gun, either proving or disproving that he took his own life in that jail cell? No, I mean, it really just shows a guard walking and working outside of his cell, which raises the question, why the hell did anybody clip this out the first time round and cause this big old mess? So I should also tell you that buried in this big file dump on the Google Drive was some body cam video from a raid on Epstein's Palm Beach mansion back in 2005. That's when he was being investigated for sexually abusing a 14-year-old girl. You may have seen some of this stuff before. I know I have, but there was stuff I hadn't seen. The walls in his mansion are just gross. Like this is the artwork, all naked women. They're lining the home. And Ghislaine Maxwell is one of them. Yeah, there she is in all her glory, posing on the beach, wearing nothing but her birthday suit. There are also photos of Epstein with the world's top movers and shakers. Among them, Fidel Castro, which is a big deal. There he is, top right of the picture there. You can see him, okay? Also in the pictures, Pope John Paul II. Look at this, meeting with Ghislaine and Jeffrey. There's a bit of a reflection on that, but trust me, that's the Pope, and that's Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm just going to go on a limb here. Pretty sure the Pope wasn't on Epstein Island. So you can be an important person photographed smiling with Epstein and Ghislaine and not be one of the dirty birdies, okay? So let's be really clear on this show. just because we're showing pictures of important people with Epstein, I think this picture proves not all of them did stuff. I'm certain of it. Look at that. But some of them did. In a resurfaced audio clip, an Epstein employee tells law enforcement that a lot of, quote, very, very young girls passed through his boss's house.
When he was in residence, would there be certain girls coming by to go see him for massages?
Yes. Yes, every day.
Every day? Yes. When he would be in residence?
Yes.
Okay.
One in the morning, one in the afternoon. He would get daily massage.
Twice a day? Yes. Okay. Describe these girls to me.
He will have, prior to me coming to the house, he will, for some reason, he will pick up from a long list. I guess a lot of people like to do those. They're nice paying jobs. But they're nice people that can, you know, and they will give massage sometimes to him and to his companion.
Did they appear young to you?
Yes, they were young. I never see anybody older than 28 or something like that.
Anybody younger than 18?
It's hard to say that, sir. There were a lot of girls that they were very, very young, but, for me to say they were minors, I've never seen the driver's license to them, but I feel very young, sir.
I'm joined now by Josh Schiffer, a criminal defense attorney in Atlanta who's represented several of Jeffrey Epstein's accusers. Josh, good to have you on the show again. Thanks for being here. So I get really annoyed when people say, here's all the public information you're looking for. Look, full transparency. And it's like, that was full transparency years ago. Been there, done that, seen that stuff already. What do you suppose this is all about?
I'm tearing the little bit of my hair that I have left out over how frustrating this process has been to release stuff that we all know is there. Anybody that's worked on this case knows that the government has compiled tens of thousands of documents, far more than were re-released today. The 3% of extra, the videos, sure, there's some illuminating stuff, but no one believes this is a fulsome production of everything. And that's why I'm so proud. My heart swells watching these victims, these very young girls that were just talked about to a police officer coming to give twice-a-day massages by, 5 girls at a time. It absolutely boggles the mind that we've been told we've received everything, because we haven't. And I'm thrilled we're seeing more pressure from these victims grabbing the power themselves.
Let me tell you something. If you ask Trump haters, they say it's because Trump's in the files. And if you ask Bill Clinton haters, they say it's because Bill Clinton's in the files. There's 2 presidents, a Democrat and a Republican. Do you think that this is the reason that this has been such a fight, is that each administration, Democrat and Republican, has protected pedophiles? Because I have a tough time believing that. What else could this be?
Well, it gets into that kind of uniparty idea, and both sides have their heroes and their villains. Both sides of our political spectrum have reasons to absolutely denigrate and beat up on all the behaviors through multiple administrations. Remember, this isn't a specifically political issue. This is criminal. This is a high-powered individual with access to the most important individuals on this earth. He used that to create a lifestyle that now we've seen it in Ghislaine's trial. There was trafficking of these women for indecent, immoral, sexual purposes. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, why would Republican and Democratic administrations keep this stuff under wraps? If there's a client list, and I'm not suggesting that, Jeffrey Epstein kept a ledger, but there's at least investigative product that shows who might else have been in there, just from the interviews with witnesses alone. Do you think that it's high-powered donors for both Republicans and Democrats, and that's why neither administration wants to release this?
It's absolutely fair to conclude that politics is really the big pressure, and it's across the entire spectrum. Nobody wants this kind of exposure. You know, there's that old lie that all PR can be good PR. This is where that's a lie. You do not want to be associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Poor old John Paul II, probably, cringing at the fact that he's being brought up in the presence of someone that is so odious in the view of all of America, that we know was involved in these horrific crimes, abusing young women. And now we've seen that abuse continue, because after these young women settled their case, after these young women participated in the Victims' Compensation Fund, they're being victimized again through this political game and machine where people are trying to pin bad facts in a search for the truth on the politicians they loathe.
Yeah, and it's super important. I'll repeat this because, look, I remember the Jeffrey Epstein parties. I didn't go to them. I was invited and I was connected. I could have very easily been in a picture with Jeffrey Epstein, because everybody in media circles and business circles, all the fancy parties and the movie premieres, he was there. He was a fixture. People thought he was great because he gave so much money to charity, right? But those people, myself included, nobody knew that he was doing this stuff. And so we've got to be so careful about these photographs. You know, when you're seen photographed with important people, or maybe they're even on a plane with him, you can't assume right away that means that they were partaking in this filthy behavior.
Absolutely. And we've now seen testimony from various groups saying, hey, yeah, that high-profile individual flew on the plane, but it was associated with a mission trip or some other charitable issue. And flatly, Jeffrey Epstein did support a bunch of really great projects and gave money to lots of wonderful organizations that had nothing to do with the secret life that he certainly participated in. The big question is, what did people know? And unfortunately, because of all the lies, because of all the hiding, because of all the issues of the people involved, we don't know what that truth is. And I don't know whether we ever can know that truth, because so many stories have been told.
I was so interested listening to the audio again of that employee. It has been out there before, but my God, there's been so much information out there. Even people who follow it find things that they didn't know existed in the public domain. But when he said this quote about the young girls, and they would give massages sometimes to him and to his companions, that made me think, well, y'all investigating this knew that there were multiple other people who were doing the same diddling that Jeffrey was doing in that mansion. So they have to have a list. They have to have gone down that rabbit hole based on what that guy told them decades ago.
Yeah, and it literally sounds like a dirty story from the 70s, some sort of wacky fantasy of, oh, I'm going to be this powerful person and I'm going to build this luxurious aristocratic lifestyle where the most famous people in the world will come and beg for my attention, and I will secretly videotape them and take recordings of them while they are pursuing the most immoral actions possible in my townhome, on my private island in the Caribbean. It really is a twisted movie, but we're finding out this actually happened. The question now is who? And we're going to hear some of that from these surviving victims. It's incredible that they've come out. They're likely violating the terms of their settlement agreement with the actions they're taking. And I look forward to hearing the raw truth from the victims who were there.
Speaking of truth, I got to get to this. I only have 30 seconds left, but this whole missing minute business. I believed when I was told straight to camera from the administration, Pam Bondi said, no, there's no missing minute. It's just a stitch in time that happens. It's just a camera glitch. It happens every night. Well, now the missing minute's been released. But there doesn't seem to be anything in it, Josh. Why? Why would somebody lie about this or not tell the truth or even take it out of there? I'm not saying that Pam Bondi lied. Maybe she didn't know, but she should have known if she's going to make that kind of an announcement.
Yeah, the buck stops with Pam Bondi, and she needs to go back and find out who's given her blatant lies as information to share with the press, because that is indefensible as the leader of such an important agency. But the question you just asked, why would they take out the minute? What was the goal? Why take the effort? Why create an issue? Wow. No one has an answer for that. I've seen the minute. There's not a lot there. I trust that's the right minute. But given how much effort was put into manipulating this and with no justification why, you got to ask additional questions. What are we still missing?
Yeah.
Why did this even happen?
Yep, they always say the cover-up's worse than the crime, and this was dumb. Whoever decided to, hack and excise this minute out caused a way bigger issue and a whole lot more headlines. Josh Schiffer, good to see you. Thank you so much for this.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much and have a great night.
You too. We'll see you again soon. Still to come, a bombshell ruling in a New York court that could breathe new life into cold cases everywhere. DNA has been solving murders for decades, but now a scientific leap has been made, and it's made its way to a serial murder case and likely to many others, maybe even to the JonBenet Ramsey murder. Up next, JonBenet's father will be here live on the new prospects that this new science could help find her killer. What does the murder of JonBenet Ramsey in 1996 have in common with the Long Island serial killings spanning decades? 3 letters: DNA. Nowadays, we almost assume that DNA at crime scenes means slam dunk convictions, but old and degraded bones and hairs have old and degraded DNA that most crime labs at police departments can't seem to wrestle with. Enter Ashleigh and several other private labs with cutting-edge ways to reconstruct a person's entire genetic makeup from the slightest little fragment of DNA. It's called whole genome sequencing. And while it's widely accepted by scholars and academics and, well, you and me, judges, that's different. They've been a tougher sell. The science has only been allowed in just a couple of criminal trials around the country, but soon, it's about to take center stage in a big one, like one of the biggest. New York versus Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer, alleged killer. Okay? He's AKA the Gilgo Beach killer, all alleged. In a landmark ruling today, a judge said prosecutors will be allowed to introduce evidence that was gleaned from hairs that were found on the Gilgo victims' remains. That evidence was obtained through whole genome sequencing. And that's a first for New York. And it brings me back to the murder of little JonBenet Ramsey in Boulder, Colorado. John Ramsey, JonBenet's dad, has been relentless in his belief that advances in DNA technology will ultimately find his daughter's killer. And John Ramsey joins me now live. John, it's good to have you on the show again. Thanks for being here. I thought of you. Listen, today, immediately, I thought about you when the judge in the Long Island serial killing case said, okay, whole genome sequencing, it's in. So what was your reaction to that?
Well, I had to study it a little bit to understand. I've been pushing forensic genetic genealogy research in our case for a while. And basically, it requires a different set of data than has been put into CODIS, which is the federal database. CODIS has 15 or 20 markers. If you match the markers, you're the bad guy. If you don't, you're out. There's no way to research genealogy and track this genealogy research program with that data. You've got to have this new data taken, new samples taken. And the way what has happened so far with these cases where old cold cases have been solved is they've used this technique of genome sampling and then built a family tree using usually the mother's side of the family, and they go back and create a family tree going back X number of years, depending on how old the case is, and then they look who the relatives were. And there's in the first case that this was solved was a Golden State Killer case in California, and it was a 40-year-old case, cold case. Well, they found this guy that was a relative in the town where this crime was committed 40 years ago. Then they went and got his DNA, and the DNA matched the sample they have. And so, bingo, they found the killer. So it's a huge advance, and I believe it's the way our case will be solved. I think there's a really good chance it could be solved if it's implemented. And I learned recently that yes, you can get this data from a hair sample. We have several hair samples from John Monet's crime scene that weren't identified. We donated hair and pubic hair. There was a pubic hair sample in Jean Monet's blanket, not linked to anybody at this point. We know you can get a sample from that now. I've heard that before, and of course heard it in your program. So it's a huge tool to identify killers.
Let me ask you this. Given the fact that this whole genome sequencing is good enough to identify a 9/11 victim, right, from 24 years ago, and now the standard is being accepted in this massive case, the serial killer case in New York. I know that you've been meeting with the Boulder police about genetic genealogy, but do you think it might be worth going back and knocking on the door and saying, hey, look what they're doing in New York. What about this whole genome sequencing? Why don't we go this route as well?
Yeah, and we should. And I have another meeting set up with the chief of police. I've met with him in January. I've got another meeting in a week or so. And that's my message. We've got to use this technique. I firmly believe that it'll solve the case. If we do it and we don't get a solution, then by gosh, I'll give you guys credit. You did everything that technically can be done today. But it's a huge advance in the use of DNA technology. You know, the last DNA testing in our case was done about 8 or 9 years ago. Technology has advanced dramatically. This is a great example of that. And
is it ever?
It's an amazing tool. And so the difference that this tool provides is the ability to use DNA information to investigate a case. We've used DNA as a country evidence to convict. DNA matches, boom, we got you. Doesn't match, you're out. That's a pretty primitive use of DNA in today's world.
Yeah. John, I know that you're headed off to CrimeCon. I am too. So I am going to find you, and we'll have to hoist a drink together. And it's always good to see you in person. And I always love when you're on the show. And I would love to get an update from you after you meet with the Boulder Police next week. I'd love to have a chat with you. Thanks for doing this tonight. I'll see you in the next couple days.
My pleasure. Great. Looking forward to it, Ashleigh. Thank you.
Me too. Always love having John on the show. That crime is going to get solved. Mark my word. Straight ahead, a make-or-break moment for the woman the internet calls the Grandma Gotti. Donna Adelson is on trial in Florida for allegedly putting out a hit on her daughter's ex-husband. We have brought you this saga before, and it's a humdinger. Grandma's lawyers told the judge at the outset that she planned to take the stand, and today she got her chance. So what did she do? What did she say to the judge, to the jury, to her fractured family? That's next. You know, it's not a crime for a murder suspect to refuse to take the stand in their own defense, even when their lawyers indicate that they will. It's just kind of annoying, actually, especially in the trial now winding down in Florida. of a wealthy South Beach matriarch named Donna Adelson. As you may know from watching this program, Adelson's accused of orchestrating the murder of her former son-in-law in Tallahassee more than a decade ago, 2014. 4 other people are already serving time for that hit. Donna Adelson's son, Charlie, Charlie's girlfriend at the time, and the 2, hitmen that the girlfriend recruited. The state says that Donna was the mastermind of it all. And today was day 8 in her trial. Prosecution had rested, and the defense was speeding towards the finish line when a big decision couldn't be put off any longer. Would Donna take the stand or not? And you should see the back and forth that happened. Take a peek.
At this point, I do need a decision. Mrs. Adelson, please rise. You've been placed under oath earlier this afternoon. Mrs. Adelson, I will advise you concerning your rights. You understand that you have the right to remain silent, and the jury will be instructed that your silence cannot be held against you in determining the merits of this case. Do you understand this?
I do understand.
Do you also understand that you have the right to testify as a witness in your case in chief on your own behalf?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
Have you made a decision concerning this matter?
I haven't. I'm not prepared to make that decision. This decision affects the rest of my life.
Mrs. Adelson, you're in the same position as every other criminal defendant who faces trial. Ultimately, you must decide whether you will testify or whether you will not. What is your decision concerning these 2 rights?
At this time, I don't want to testify.
And with that, the defense rested. My next guest was there covering the trial for his podcast, Surviving the Survivor. Joel Waldman is the author as well of the book with the same title. It's available everywhere. Joel, welcome back to the program. Okay, I'm not exactly sure I've ever seen I just don't think I've ever seen that before. I just don't know. Like, you've had the whole trial. You knew today was coming. You got lawyers on either side of you. What was it like in court?
It was wild. I mean, if it's ever going to happen with anybody, if you know this defendant, Donna Adelson, it was going to happen with her. And it was like watching a toddler, like my 6-year-old son, trying to decide between a grape lollipop or a cherry lollipop. And they just can't make the choice. And she had all this time. And even at the beginning, I've been here since jury selection, but during opening statements, I mean, her own defense team essentially told jurors, you're going to hear from our client. You're going to hear from our defendant. And suddenly in the 11th hour, she says, I'm not going to do this. However, Ashleigh, this goes against my journalistic instincts, but I've got multiple sources close to both the defense and the prosecution saying late tonight that Donna Adelson has had a change of heart, and now she may plan to testify tomorrow. And I think the judge will allow it. It's going to be interesting to see if it actually happens now.
Go back to that part about you think the judge will allow it. The defense can rest its case and then reopen its case as long as closings haven't happened? Is that kind of the math here?
Yeah, so my show, we have experts and lawyers in true crime. And so I've talked to, I'm not an attorney myself, but lawyers are telling me that essentially because of appellate issues and considering this judge, who is fantastic, Judge Stephen Everett, that if they come into court tomorrow, Josh Selman, her defense attorney, and Jackie Fulford, who is an interesting character in her own right, and they say to Judge Everett, our client has had a change of heart. He essentially has his hands tied because he doesn't want them to come back on an appeal and say the judge didn't allow it to happen. So they likely will let it go forward. It'll be really interesting. Georgia Kappelman, who's the lead prosecutor here, she will annihilate Donna on cross. She's already done it to all the defense witnesses. She's one of the best in the country, prosecutor of the year in Florida. So Donna is towing a very dangerous line tonight.
Well, things haven't been going very well, to be honest. If you follow the evidence in this trial, let me list out a little bit. It's pretty damning stuff. So her own kids testified against her. The prison phone recordings were played in court with her son, Charlie, and it didn't go her way. Her own notes in her planner really inured to the prosecutors. The FBI sting recordings were played for the jury as well. the money trail to the killers looked like it went right to the top to Grandma, Grandma Adelson, the internet calls her Grandma Gotti, and that airport arrest of her with a one-way ticket, to Vietnam that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. Is there anything, Joel, that she could have done on the stand to help her case?
Honestly, I think it's a lose-lose for her. The Adelsons famously just can't keep their mouths quiet. I mean, her son Charlie's convicted, and he's not here in Florida, by the way, because his defense was that the Latin Kings gangs extorted him, and he was able to pay on a layaway plan, which is also something that's absolutely absurd. So he had to be moved to South Dakota, and anything Donna says is ultimately going to implicate her. And by the way, they also have her son in town, so the government can call him to rebut anything she says. It's very dicey. I'm sure her attorneys are trying to talk her out of it, but Donna thinks she's the smartest one in the room, and I won't be surprised if she, in fact, has a change of heart and takes a stand to testify tomorrow in her own defense.
Wow, well, you'll have to come back and talk about that. Charlie Adelson, though, may have gotten just a nice big field trip from that prison up north. It's boring every day. You get to get on a plane or in a van. I mean, that's fun. Even if you don't testify, it's just the taxpayers pay for it. Okay, the friend on the witness stand, Donna Adelson's friend, explaining away the one-way ticket to a country without an extradition treaty, Vietnam. Let's play that because this is rich. Take a look.
The ironic thing was that the round trip was a fraction more than one way, and I suggested, since you don't know when you're coming back until sometime in January, book a one-way. And I remember commenting to Harvey, I said, I'd be willing to bet it's cheaper to fly from Vietnam to the United States than it is from the United States to Vietnam.
I mean, it could be true. I mean, it yielded these pictures. They got her right there, ticket in hand with her husband. Quick question, I got like 20 seconds left. The daughter, Wendy Adelson, it was her ex-husband that was the victim of the hit. He died. Is Wendy going to get charged in this?
Well, in this case, the prosecutor was dropping her name a lot. There's a lot of new evidence that kind of dripped and drabbed out of this trial. So the consensus is, yeah, they're going to go after her. She has moved to Austin. Some people say she's in Colorado. There's no doubt the FBI is keeping an eye on her. And the betting odds are she will be indicted. And if I'm Wendy, I am nervous tonight.
Wow. Joel Waldman, like I said, you have to come back. You've left a cliffhanger. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
He left a couple of cliffhangers. He will be back for sure. Okay, I would say that our next story, by the way, real quickly, this is his True Crime podcast and YouTube channel. The book as well is called Surviving the Survivor. So make sure you check it out. It's good stuff. Still to come tonight, the government calls him an assassin, but his superfans call him a hero and a heartthrob. And the internet long ago dubbed him a fashion icon. So are we really all that surprised that Luigi Mangione appears to be modeling clothes for an online retailer? How the F did this happen, since he's been locked up on murder charges since last year? We'll explain everything next. Would you buy a hat from Lee Harvey Oswald? Or maybe a nice pair of loafers from Mark David Chapman? I ask because the online retailer Shein apparently thought that Luigi Mangione could really help move some men's shirts. The men's ditzy floral shirt, to be precise, on sale for the low, low price of $11.69. Frankly, from a business perspective, I get it. The alleged CEO assassin turns heads every time he shows up in court with millions thinking he's a hero, even apart from the megawatt smile and his fashion sense. Still, he's locked up tight in the federal jail in Brooklyn, awaiting 3 separate trials, one of which could get him the death penalty. So it's pretty clear that it's not really Luigi Mangione hawking a cheap shirt for Shein. So is it Photoshop? Is it a long-lost twin? Is it AI? The company says this, and I quote Shein. The image in question was provided by a third-party vendor and was removed immediately upon discovery. We have stringent standards for all listings on our platform. We are conducting a thorough investigation, strengthening our monitoring processes, and will take appropriate action against the vendor in line with our policies. No comment from Luigi's prosecutors, but circle September 16th on your calendar. That's when we'll next see the real Luigi Mangione. And no offense to Sheen, but based on Luigi's wealthy upbringing, I'm guessing he wouldn't be caught dead in traffic court wearing an $11 shirt. Cuomo is next.